Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up video. Before I get into it, I just want to ask, has anybody watched the finale of the third season of Picard? Because it was just incredible. I'm sure you can tell that I am riding a Star Trek high at the moment. That was just the perfect finale. It fixed everything that I did not like in Star Trek Nemesis. Oh my god, I literally was brought to tears 8 times during that final episode. Data is the best, hence my gold. Anyway, I will talk about books now. I just had to get that out. So as predicted, I did read less in April than I read in March, and I am not mad about it. That was actually my plan for the month. Quality over quantity, right? I ended up reading a total of 14 books, so still pretty good, for a total of 4,267 pages. So this page count is actually significantly lower than what I have read in January, February, and March. I was pretty much reading between 6,000 and 7,000 pages a month, and I definitely declined this month, but it's because I didn't listen to any audiobooks. I decided to focus on making progress in Critical Role, Campaign 2 of the Mighty Nein. I am so close to the end. I should be finishing it up in another month or two, though I do want to listen to some audiobooks in May, so this number might go up slightly, but not as significantly as in previous months. I also just want to thank everyone who voted in my poll for what I should read next. I asked if people thought I should read Tress of the Emerald Sea or The Blade itself. Tress won 73% to 27%, so that is the book that I picked up next. I am about halfway through it, and I'm also actually about halfway through The Blade itself now because I ended up picking up that one as well. Here's the thing. So earlier in the month, which you'll hear about, I also put up a poll on Instagram asking what I should read next, The Blade itself or Red Rising, and Red Rising won, so that's what I picked up. Then Tress beat out The Blade itself, and I was like, man, no one wants me to read the First Law trilogy, but I do really want to read it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick up both. So that's what I've been doing. Initial impressions, I am actually liking The Blade itself better than Tress of the Emerald Sea, but we'll see if things change. I'm still early on into both of them, and that will be in my May wrap up. So the first book that I completed in April is a carryover from March, and that was Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I talked about this one a little bit in my last wrap up, just what I had read so far. So just to give you a full review, like full thoughts and feelings, obviously spoiler free, I will go over it now. This is the 4th installment in the Stormlight Archive series, and I personally really loved this one. I've read a couple of other reviews where people have said that this one dragged a little bit for them, or it was a little bit too bogged down in the science of things, and I could not disagree more. I felt like this one really worked for me. If anything, I feel like Oathbringer was the one that dragged a little bit, but Rhythm of War I was fully invested in. It had me hooked the whole time. I really love how technical things got. I think it gives us a deeper understanding of the world and the way that they're manipulating elements to carry out things that they want to do and like progress technologically. So I found that to be really interesting. And I also really liked that this was technically like Navani's book, and we hadn't really gotten much time with her in the past, but we got to know her a lot more in this one. It just really expanded upon what we had previously known about her. And I also really enjoyed getting the flashbacks to her marriage to Gavilar. I thought that added a lot of insight that we didn't previously have. That being said, there were some very heartbreaking moments in this book that I'm honestly still struggling to get over. I loved the continuation of the journey of each of our characters in this book, and I have really high hopes that the final book could be either Renarin or Taravangian's book. I would be so excited to get either one of them as our like main character. Another quick thing, I was also kind of worried about getting so much page time with the Fused, but I found Rabaniel to be really interesting. I liked that we didn't necessarily know her motivations, and I thought that her dynamic with Navani was really interesting and really fun to follow. That being said, I was a little bit frustrated with the Shallan chapters. She was undergoing a very specific kind of storyline in here, and I just felt like it was a lot. And it was too many pages of kind of the same thing and like her struggle, and while it's definitely interesting to see her struggle, I just felt like it was getting like a little bit repetitive, and it wasn't keeping me as interested in any of the other perspectives, which is so sad to say because Words of Radiance is Shallan's book and that is still my favorite book in the series, but I definitely have not always been the biggest Shallan fan. I think like in the first book I felt like she was fine. In the second book I loved her. In the third book I don't feel like she got like a ton of page time, and then in this one she was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit. But by the end, I was obviously very interested in what was going on there. As this sits, my current ranking of Stormlight Archive books, number 1 for me is Words of Radiance, number 2 is actually Rhythm of War, number 3 is Way of Kings, and then number 4 would be Oathbringer. Let me know what you think about that. If you have anything spoilery to say, just like tag it as such in the comments so that other people don't get spoiled in case they haven't read it. But I am like really hoping that Andrew will start this soon because I need someone that I can like have in-depth conversations with about these characters. I'm obsessed. Then I read the first trilogy of Red Rising. So Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. And first, I'm just going to talk about the series as a whole. I'm also going to put these down because they're heavy. Not as heavy as Rhythm of War, but heavy. I ended up just loving the series, and this is a series that I feel like is another one of those exception to the rule kind of series for me. I'm someone that is a very character-driven reader. I love long, slow, really in-depth fantasy, and Red Rising is so action-packed and the plot moves forward at light speed, but I loved this series. Pierce Brown somehow manages to cultivate a really deep connection between the characters and the reader, all while throwing us into action scene after action scene. No one is safe. Pierce Brown is not afraid to kill off characters, and I'm not talking side characters, I'm talking main characters that we've grown to love. I think like part of what kept me so interested is that the stakes are just so high. It's like unpredictable. Like you do not know what's gonna happen, who's gonna make it, how things are gonna play out. And also another reason that I love this is because I really love an underdog story, and this is like truly an underdog story. For those who don't know the Red Rising series, the basic premise is that it takes place in kind of like a dystopian world where there is a color-based caste system, and Darrow, who is a red, which is the lowest caste, is tasked with trying to terraform Mars so that people in the future will be able to live there and it'll be habitable for them. But what he doesn't know and finds out pretty early on is that his entire cast of people have been lied to. They have seen themselves as doing important work and sacrificing themselves in order to better future generations. However, he finds out that Mars has actually been terraformed for the past 200 years, and his race has been lied to. They've been stuck down there. Meanwhile, all of these people are up living on the surface, like living their best lives so that golds can thrive. Golds are the highest caste within the system. So he ends up infiltrating their system, kind of becoming a gold, altering his physical appearance so that he can fit in, and he ends up going into their institute. Obviously, as this is called Red Rising, it is all about Darrow trying to rise through the ranks and try to bring about change within their society, starting with this first Hunger Games-esque battle arena type thing. Another thing about this series is that it is brutally violent, which is not something that I tend to enjoy, though I definitely have a much easier time reading it than watching it. However, because the stakes are so high in the series, I feel like it couldn't have been done any other way. Like, we as the reader need to be reminded of the kinds of things that happen during war situations and revolutions, and it just made the story so much more impactful. I also think I highlighted more quotes from this series than almost any other book series that I've ever read. It just has the kind of lines that you read and you just like feel them in your gut. Like you read a line and you're just like, yes. Like there were so many lines like that throughout all three of these books. And now just to go a little bit into depth on each of the books, not super long because I obviously just gave you like a pretty expansive review of the three of them, but first I'll talk about Red Rising. So this was definitely my least favorite of the books. I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about the rest of the series after reading this one, but I had heard that the books continue to get better as you keep reading, so I decided to keep going. I definitely liked it. I wasn't like, wow, this is bad, but just wasn't really what I was expecting. This one is definitely more self-contained, and it often gets compared to The Hunger Games. And while I totally see that comparison, it is very different in the fact that it is a lot more violent, and also it's not every man for themselves. There are a lot of alliances being formed in this first game. A lot of them carry over into the real world, and I thought that was like a really fascinating aspect of the story. Compared to The Hunger Games, the violence in this one is just dialed up like tenfold. Next was Golden Sun, and this is quite possibly one of the best sci-fi books that I have ever read. I love that we get a lot more space stuff in this one. Like right off the bat, we're kind of thrown into some interplanetary situations and space battles. We also get to see the beginnings of the Howlers bringing the revolution to the real world, and just seeing how the politics play out, and really like just how horrible some of the golds are. And not only the golds, like a lot of people in a lot of the different colors are not the best people, but the golds most especially have a lot of bad eggs. And really the reason why I love this one so much is because of the ending. I think I was just not expecting that to happen. My mind was like completely blown. And if it's any indication, like I read all three of these books back to back. I could not stop because I was so invested in the story and so invested in the characters. And then finally I have Morningstar. So not gonna lie, this one was pretty painful. I lost some precious characters in here. I was betrayed. My heart was pieced back together, and it was definitely reinforced that when you're fighting a war, even if you are winning the war, it's not a total win. There are a lot of losses that your side will take. There are a lot of sacrifices to be made, a lot of really tough decisions, and all of them come with really high price tags. The ending of this did not play out the way that I was expecting, but when I tell you that I loved it, like I cannot express that enough. I actually already want to reread all of these books, even knowing that I still have more of them. Like this was such a satisfying story, just the three of them, that I am definitely ready to experience it again. I've been debating whether I should start reading Iron and Gold soon, if I should wait until closer to July, or if I should wait until when I know the final book in the series is going to come out. I'm saying July because Lightbringer, which is the next one, comes out then. But Pierce Brown is like a killer with these cliffhangers, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to wait. I'm so grateful that I waited to read this series until it was complete. So the idea of picking up like the next set of books without having a conclusion that I can get my hands on immediately is a little bit upsetting. I have also been thinking that, you know what, maybe I'll just go for it because I just love these so much, and then I'll just reread all of them when the final book is coming out. So that's an option for me. Then moving on to Fullmetal Alchemist. So I read the next 3 volumes in the series, which were volumes 5, 6, and 7. We'll just hold up volume 5. So in my last wrap up, I talked about how I was really enjoying the series, but I did really want to have a little bit more from the villains so I could try to kind of figure out what their end goal is. And literally, like right off the bat in volume 5, we get just that. We find out a lot more about the villains. Between these 3 volumes, honestly, we get so much more page time with them, and they're really interesting. And I still don't fully know like how they came together, like what's going on, but I am definitely interested. There were also a couple of major reveals in these volumes. One of them I did not see coming at all, so I'm pretty excited about that one, and I can't wait for that to be further explored. That was actually I want to say it was toward the end of the 6th volume that I found out, or 5th, I can't remember, but either way, it was good, and I'm still very much enjoying this series. I'm probably going to finish it up within the next, I want to say if I continue reading 3 volumes a month, like next 3 months or so. But yeah, very much enjoying these. I also read the first volume of Witch Hat Atelier, and my copy is upstairs and I'm too lazy to grab it, so I'm just gonna throw a little graphic up there while I talk about it. But this manga so far is so magical and so cute. We're following a young girl who has been obsessed with magic since she was a kid, and then one day there is a wizard that comes to her town, and after a little debacle she's able to impress him with her skills, and he whisks her away to become his apprentice. But she's not the only apprentice, and the apprentices that he already has are not thrilled that she kind of circumvented implemented the entire traditional route of becoming an apprentice. She doesn't have any magical skill. She just has this one book where she's read about magic, but she's never known like how to make it happen. And it's so cute. Like I really, really enjoyed this one. There's definitely major animosity between the apprentices, which I'm curious to see how that'll play out as the series keeps going. I also really love the art style in this book. It's very whimsical. It's very Studio Ghibli-esque. It's just so cute. It was also a really nice light read between some of the Red Rising books. It was like the break that I kind of needed when my emotions were running high. And I'm really looking forward to continuing on with this series. Then I also read Critical Role Mighty Nein Origins for Yasha. So this is the last graphic novel that I had to read in order to be current with the origin stories that have been released in comic form thus far. And the reason that it's taken me so long is because I somehow lost our copy of the graphic novel during our move. I still cannot find it anywhere, but I saw that my library actually had a digital copy, so I was able to read it that way. I literally still cannot find my copy. Like I don't know how it just disappeared. It's gotta be somewhere, but I've looked everywhere. So sadly, I feel like Yasha's origin was one of the weaker ones that has been released so far. My other least favorite was Caleb's. But I do feel like when it comes to Yasha's, it's probably partially because Ashley was so absent from a lot of like the beginning of campaign 2. She was off acting in New York City, so they had to kind of come up with a storyline for her character to not be there. Ooh, it's really raining. While I am satisfied with the backstory of hers that we got, I don't think we got to spend like as much time with her character as we did with a lot of the other characters. Though Yasha does grow to become one of my favorites in the campaign. She's kind of like a gentle giant. I think part of why I didn't enjoy this one as much as the others is because I didn't love the art style. I don't think it worked as well for this one. I think it was the same artist that did the graphic novel for Not, and it worked really well for that one, but I would have liked to see something a little bit softer for Yasha. So it was very short. I don't think that it was bad by any means, but it was just very middling for me. And then the last chunk of graphic novels that I have to talk about are that I read 5 Star Wars graphic novels. To be honest, I don't really have much to say about any of them. They were all like 2 to 3 star reads for me, most of them on the 2-star side though. So just to like rattle them off, I read Star Wars Age of Resistance Heroes, Star Wars Age of Resistance Villains, Star Wars Allegiance, Star Wars Bounty Hunters Volume 2, Target Advance, and Star Wars Dr. Aphra Volume 2, The Engine Job. So one thing I will say is that I think Alyssa Wong is doing a good job writing the Dr. Aphra graphic novels. I think Kieran Gillen is a really tough act to follow, and he did such a great job with Dr. Aphra in the initial run. On the other hand, Ethan Sachs wrote a bunch of these, and I've never really like clicked with his Star Wars stories. They're always like just okay for me. In the ones that I mentioned, he wrote Allegiance and the 2nd volume of Bounty Hunters. And then when it comes to the Age of Resistance one-shots, that is definitely my least favorite age of Star Wars, so I just don't have like a deep connection with those characters. I've been trying to read everything in release order, so these were the next ones to mark off my list, which is why I read them. I'm done. I never have to read them again. But yeah, they were just like whatever, nothing to write home about. And then in Allegiance, that one was also in the Resistance era, which is probably why I didn't enjoy it as much, even though we did get to see Leia. I do love any time that I get with Leia. But this one, I just felt like Rey was so whiny and annoying. And I was like, why are you like this? Like, I don't feel like that's how her character was in the movies, which I also don't really love that much, but she was like exceptionally annoying in this comic, and I don't know why she was written that way. So yeah, that's the note we're gonna end on. But that's everything that I read in April. Let me know if you have read Red Rising, because I need to talk about it with people. I love it. And I think I should just go ahead and read Iron Gold. I wouldn't be surprised if I pick that up in the next month. Just throw off my reading schedule. Why not? But that's everything that I have for this video. So I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!